We're going to call the committee to order. It's Tuesday, March 18th. We have a full quorum with the committee, and I'd like to start off with item 3 if the commissioner is here so we can get them in and out.
Item number 3 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Eli Lipman to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2016.
And do we have any cards on this?
Yes, sir.
Just sit there. If we have cards, we'll bring them up. Okay, we have Leonard Schaefer. Come up to the mic. Just,
Chair Parks, members of the committee, Leonard Schaefer, Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, but I'm speaking on my own behalf today. I've had some occasion to speak with Eli, and the first was at his request, and he came and wanted to know about the commission and what we do and how we do it and things of that nature, which made me think that that's somebody who's really interested. The second was at my request, and I find that his background, where he's working, what he's doing with outreach, looking at performance metrics, and things of that nature, his technical knowledge, and his statements that he has enjoyed working with his neighborhood council, becoming more involved in his community, and apparently finds this as an extension of that and a way to get others involved and others interested. So I would speak very favorably with regards to this appointment. Thank you.
thank you very much for coming down. All right, Mr. Lipman, why don't you give us just a little overview of your background and your interest in this commission, and then we can ask you a couple of questions.
Thank you very much, Chair Parks and members of the committee. I've lived in Los Angeles now on and off for about 9 years now. I'm a transplant from further east, and my wife is a longtime Angelino. She brought me out here, and I have worked in the community pretty much in civic life since I've been out here. I started actually with, I used to work for Senator Clinton many years ago. I worked for Congressman Sherman here in the district office. I was president of the Valley Reps, which your staff may know if you're in the Valley, is sort of an association of different staff members. And then more recently, I've been working for AJC, mostly known by you as American Jewish Committee. First doing outreach here in the local Los Angeles region, and then I've been solely working on a national level, working with all our regions to improve the organization and the work we do. I was appointed as Secretary of the Palms Neighborhood Council about 4 years ago, and then I was elected in 2012 to be president, and I've served since then. And it's been a really fantastic experience. We did a wonderful mural project that you should come and check out, where we put artwork on the utility boxes owned by DOT, and that's really helped brand the community. We do an annual bike rodeo. You're all welcome to come, where we engage students in the community. And then we just opened up a park in working with Councilman Koretz's office, using funding available locally, and we completely redesigned the park. It's become a real hub for the community. So I've had some really great successes, and I'm looking to take that experience and use it on Bonk.
Let me just ask one thing, is that you've had some special projects, but on your experience in the administration of neighborhood councils and things, what experience do you see can help you at Bonk and also help other neighborhood councils, as you've seen probably good and bad as far as the administration?
Yeah, you know, I think that we have to have a balance between what the neighborhood councils need to do and are required to do, and also allowing them some creativity, because it's the creativity that really engages and empowers and moves our communities forward. So we sort of have to have a good balance between that. And, you know, being on the ground, I've seen a lot of frustration where people sort of get, you know, taken by the rules, or, you know, focusing on the language and stuff like that. And I think we need to make sure we don't lose sight of the end result, which is to help the neighborhood councils be productive, be more functional, and to, in the end, outreach and empower, engage their communities. So I think that would be something that I'd like to kind of help with, is to see if there's ways or creative solutions that we can provide structure, because that's important, but also allow for creativity in the neighborhood council system.
My final question, I think we talked last week on the phone, and I just wondered, can you share with us some of your ideas of how we can get more people, other than the officers and the elected members, more people from the community involved in neighborhood councils?
Well, we talk a lot about how the neighborhood council board members are volunteers for the city of Los Angeles. And, obviously, the amount of people that comes to a board meeting is an indicator of the health of a neighborhood council. But I've always sort of said I'd rather see more people at the park opening or at we do a monthly cleanup where we just go out and talk to people and pick up trash. I'd rather see more people, more volunteers at those type of things, because sometimes a board meeting can be very formulaic, it can be very internal, it can be a lot the board talking to themselves. And for somebody who might be new, hope it's okay. It can be sort of a strange environment to walk into, almost an alien environment. So I think we need to find opportunities to get those people who are just want to do something in their community, get them civically engaged in a project, in a problem, locally, and part of a database. And I was just talking with Grace about sort of databases and how we improve the neighborhood council database. Improve our outreach, our websites, our social media, so we can reach more people to get involved with these volunteer opportunities, because that will get better board members, better elections, and better neighborhood councils in the end. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thanks for volunteering to serve on a neighborhood council. And on top of that, thanks for volunteering to serve on the commission. That's quite a commitment of volunteerism, and that's a great example for all neighborhood council members, I think.
Well, and thank you. I know you started out as a board member.
I was a founder, but I didn't sit on the board, but I was a founder. And so I think that just by virtue of your occupation, your profession, communications and advocacy strategist, that you provide a key skill to the commission. And I love the word advocacy, because I have long felt that the neighborhood councils need mentoring. They need to learn how to become advocates for their communities. And we all know that there are varying levels of functionality in our neighborhood councils. Some of them, I would say, are dysfunctional entirely. Some of them are highly functional. And I would love to see a stronger consistency, and maybe that's where the advocacy piece comes in, and encourage all of these people who volunteer their free time to make their community better to be more effective advocates in terms of what they see as best for their community based on input from stakeholders, and advocates to work with the city family to improve and bring better resources to their community. And I think sometimes neighborhood councils, they are wandering in the wilderness about how to become effective. And I hate that, because it's depressing when someone steps up to volunteer for their community and they feel like it's a waste of time, because we in this city more than ever before need a robust core of volunteers. It's all about collaboration to move things forward with dwindling resources. So I would say we need our neighborhood council members, volunteers, board members, just participants to help and volunteer and work with, collaborate. So I'm encouraged and delighted to see your appointment to this, and please keep in mind what my perspective, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. And I have to commend you on the hire you made with David Hiron. He was our deputy for our region, and he did a fantastic job, and we were really sad to lose him. So I hope he's doing a good job over there. So.
He is. Thank you.
Hi, Eli.
Hi.
I've known Mr. Littman for a couple of years, having been in the Valley my entire life. He used to work for Congressmember Brad Sherman right when I first met you, and then you were also the president of the San Fernando Valley Young Dems.
Yep, that's
you
right.
Remember? He's very involved. I have three questions for you.
And I'm still in the Valley all the time. My mother-in-law lives there, so
That's right.
yeah. So
So what are some of your thoughts on removing neighborhood council members who maybe have become an obstruction to getting to the work of the neighborhood councils. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Boy, I know it's something up for discussion on whether or not rather than decertifying, removing neighborhood council members. I think the first option should be to really leverage both the NEAs and Council for Councils to see if there's a way to work something out, or the city attorney to kind of bring people together and bridge the gap. But I've been on the neighborhood council, and sometimes there just are irreconcilable differences, and it may, I can't say. I think that having that option in terms of what you're discussing later is a good option in the toolkit that Bonk and the department needs, but I think it would have to be, it'd have to be on a case-by-case basis and making an evaluation of, in the end, is it the right thing for the community to do that, or could it possibly create further divide or further rifts? And that, I think, is the negative aspect of removing a whole board, is you create a group of people who will constantly or continually be sort of segmented out from the community as a whole.
And how do neighborhood councils operate effectively in the era of budget cuts? Because the department has had taken severe budget cuts over the last couple of years. So what are your thoughts around that?
You gotta, I work for a nonprofit, and we went through some pretty difficult times. I think it's just about leveraging. You got to find the money out there. You got to find ways to cobble together a resource here or volunteer here or something there. We put together a plan for this park, and we handed it to the council office, and we said, okay, let's get this done. And we found some QUIBME funds. We found some money from the Parks Foundation. We put all these different things together into a pot, and all of a sudden we had a park. So I think it's about, and I think that goes back to what you were saying, Councilman O'Farrell, was the advocacy piece, is we really have to work on teaching folks how to be more effective advocates. And that's some of the stuff that I do for AJC right now is how do we measure our impact, and how do we then improve our impact in the work that we do day to day. So, I think if we can, and obviously the Congress is a great opportunity for that. I know that there's a lot of discussion in the work that Bonk's doing on the Training Institute, and I want to be involved with that. But I think, it's about helping or teaching them where the monies lie and how to leverage it.
Yeah, and my final question has to do with trainings for neighborhood council members. I really believe that you need to, give people the necessary trainings and tools to be able to be effective on these neighborhood councils. And you need to do it early on so that people understand what they're getting themselves into. Do you have any thoughts around what additional trainings we can perhaps adopt to try to assist some of these neighborhood council members?
Well, I wouldn't say I don't have any thoughts on additional trainings, but I would say that I think we should work on best practices. When I was president and we had some board turnover, and I had to train a bunch of new people, and I sort of said, oh man, do I have to stay up till 1 a.m. pulling together a PowerPoint presentation for them on a Saturday morning? And instead what I did was I called one of the neighborhood councils and said, what do you do, the chair? And I said, what do you do? And he said, oh, I've already put together this beautiful PowerPoint presentation that goes through step by step everything. So what I think we should try and do is take advantage of what's already out there. And everything from, I did Toastmasters for 2 years to learn how to speak better and run an agenda. Encourage people or negotiate a discount with International Toastmasters so a board member could join that organization and learn how to do that. Or if there is, particularly well-run legal training advising, it's just sort of like Plan Check. The Plan Check Neighborhood Council does these trainings on planning, trying to leverage the things, the resources that are already out there, and providing them to folks and distributing them so that the department, who we all know is under-resourced, and the board, who is all a bunch of volunteers, doesn't have to, we use this phrase a lot, reinvent the wheel. That would be my recommendation.
That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When will this go to council? Tomorrow, sir. Tomorrow, okay. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you at council tomorrow. And
okay.
Appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much, Chair Parks and Councilwoman Martinez.
Go to item 1 now.
Item number 1, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and Board of Neighborhood Commissioners Report.
Technicality. Excuse me. Technicality. We're going to move this item to council on a unanimous vote.
Just a minor technical.
Just a minor.
Okay.
Nori's keeping books on me over here.
Okay.
Yes, we'll vote on that. All right. Now, item 1.
Item number 1 is the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and Board of Neighborhood Commissioners reports relative to the exhaustive efforts process for neighborhood councils.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer, you want to come up now before Gracie makes her presentation?
Yes, and I may ask your indulgence as that 2-minute thing goes off, because I'd like to give you a little background on what we're looking at. Leonard Schaefer, Board of Neighborhood Commissioners.
We have a trap door into your seat, so
Okay.
beware.
It's Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, and I'm speaking for the commission today as its vice president. This goes to the item number 1, and I'm sure you've all gotten the letter from our president, Karen. And this was recommended, a recommendation that came out of our working groups. It's referred to as the non-nuclear solution, and I'll tell you why. And it dovetails very well with what we've been talking about here with training and such as that. What we're looking to do with the commission is to give neighborhood council boards the tools with which to discipline themselves. First, we'd like to see training, that kind that's been mentioned. We had a nice meeting with the city attorney's office, Karen Mack and myself, and they came up with some good ideas for training on what I refer to as bad behavior, which encompasses the sexual discrimination, the bullying, and everything else. And we're working on putting that together and telling neighborhood councils, here's something you have to take. But what do we do after that? And what we'd like to do is give the boards the power to look at their own members and say, hi, if you don't do this, we're allowed to take action against you. You get the training. If you can't get the training, you can't sit here, you can't do things. We don't allow that. If you do get the training and something happens and you continue with this type of behavior, and then there's more training by the city attorney's office and you continue, then we have the power to look at you and say, you may no longer serve on this board. We want to give them those tools. The question becomes, what do we do with a board that fails to discipline itself? Do we wait for exhaustive efforts, and under the plan, the department comes to us and says, hi, we've tried, nothing works. We're going to recommend involuntary decertification. So we decertify and remove a neighborhood council, and the neighborhood is without its neighborhood council for probably 2 years while they're reorganizing. That seems rather unfair to the stakeholders. And so what we're asking is that the administrative code and the plan be amended so that after all of this has happened, after the exhaustive efforts, after we've looked at them and we've said, you aren't doing what we gave you the tools to do, that Empower LA, that Dunn can come to the commission and say, we're recommending that this board be removed and new elections be held. So that way, a neighborhood is without its neighborhood council for perhaps, say, 3 months rather than 2 years. That way, we're not punishing everybody. We're only working on those that have not performed as they should. And so the commission is very much in support of this. You've got the letter from President Karen Mack. That's the background. I'm going to urge you to pass this on to the city council with a positive recommendation.
Thank you very much. Gracie?
Good afternoon, council members. Gracie Liu, General Manager for the Department of Neighbor Empowerment. Commissioner Schaefer summed it up really well. It is something that we actually asked the commission to consider, and their plan review committee and also the neighborhood councils weighed in on this and thought that it was a good idea. We know how difficult it is to certify a neighborhood council, and it is not, we basically, in exhaustive efforts, we try everything we can possibly do in order to avoid decertification, because we've seen in areas such as in South LA where a neighborhood council that has been decertified has not been able to come back, and that area has not been served through a neighborhood council for many years. So we would rather have this option of vacating the board first before we ever even consider decertification as an option.
Let me just ask before we get into the details, is this recommendation and also item 2 part of the overall plan?
That's correct.
Okay, I was just wondering now, why did we take those out of sequence and not produce the plan?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your
I
question.
said, why did we take these 2 out of sequence and rather than just bring the whole plan?
They have been moved at different speeds because there were so many recommendations that were going before the commission, and the commission was taking up a partial part of the recommendations, and so they wanted to move forward those that did not have any issues, such as training. Right now, training it keeps going back to the commission in terms of additional feedback. So what was done, they wanted to basically move forward first.
Okay. Now, what's the status of the plan? Is that going to get to us at some point?
Maybe the city attorney can weigh in on this in terms of process. I mean, once this goes forward to City Council for approval, would we then update the plan just with these items, or would we try to do an overall plan?
Yes, Deputy City Attorney Darren Martinez. They would happen in conjunction. You would also, at the same time that you amend the administrative code, the plan is amended just through a motion process at council. So typically, when we have a change that's in both, we just bring it forth with the ordinance and the motion at the same time.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought maybe several meetings ago we talked about there was a large plan that Bunk was looking at and had a variety of views and changes and maybe even charter review, and that we're going to get that at some point. Is that still in the works?
It is coming to you kind of piecemeal at this point, and then they will be changed as Deputy City Attorney Darren Martinez said, as City Council passes them. If you like, we can consolidate and do a final report about what ultimately has changed, if that's something that you would like to see.
For me, one thing is, I think it's important, this number 1, that you deal with it quickly, because I think that's been an irritant for a long while, and it's so common sense you wonder how it took us this long to get to it, but that we don't decertify an entire organization. We look at the people that are creating the problem.
Right.
But on the other hand, I think it would be instructive, at least for me, that you see the larger plan in some form, that you can see the impact on the organization and what we're trying to do. Because I always am concerned when you piecemeal or you send pieces, something's going to conflict with something,
Sure.
and then you start the cycle all over again. And as we know, people on the neighborhood council, they read this stuff, and you'll get some 30-page letter about an and or an or something that doesn't match. And so I'm just thinking for all of our health and well-being, if there's some way we can get the larger report, then we can produce it, send it in mass, get these things done. Now, the pieces like ordinance changes or charter changes, they're going to take a while
Right.
to get actually done, but the approval of the larger plan, I think, would be helpful, at least for me.
Okay. So we can go and prepare such a report and bring it back to the committee.
That way we keep a string on all these pieces.
Yes.
There's a lot of live pieces.
Will do.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with you 100%. I think the various policy recommendations coming back in one report is probably a more, a better process.
Sure.
I like that.
I agree. I had the same question about, I feel like we're piecemealing all these different recommendations. So I didn't hear you answer this part. So what is the status of the final report of the policy recommendations? Where are we at with the report itself?
We actually hadn't put together a report because we're pushing it through piecemeal like this. So what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll prepare a final report that will track all of the various recommendations and the impact on the plan.
And I read that there was 21% of the folks surveyed that did not support this particular recommendation. What are we going to do? Is there anything left to do to reach out to that 21% of the neighborhood council members who didn't agree with this policy recommendation? Is there any thoughts about that?
We haven't. We kind of been going the democratic way on this, but We can go back and if they have provided us information under contact
That was my other
kind
question. Did they give you specific reasons why they weren't supporting this policy recommendation?
Yes, and actually, my policy director, Joe Hari, did compile most of this, the Survey Monkey, so that had this information. Some of them didn't make comments, and I don't know, Joe, if you have that information.
They just checked off that they didn't agree, or?
Some of them actually did write comments.
Oh,
Yes, Joe Hari, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Yes, we do have the information, the Survey Monkey information, and some of them did provide contact information, some of them didn't, but we can, in the report, we can present that to you as well.
and how many times has the department have to put a neighborhood council in exhausted efforts? Since we established neighborhood councils, how many times have you had to do this?
I don't have that number. We haven't tracked it since the beginning. I can try to compile that. I don't know how good the records have been.
Although we do have one number for the last 4 years since 2009, there have been 11 neighborhood councils who have been placed into exhaustive efforts. One just recently, so that makes it 12. But since 2009, 12 neighborhood councils have been placed into exhaustive efforts.
And I do want to comment on that too, to say that sometimes more neighborhood councils should be put into exhaustive efforts, but we literally don't have the staff capacity to do it because exhaustive efforts takes a toll on our neighborhood empowerment analysts in terms of the workload, because sometimes we have to completely take over the neighborhood council running their meetings, putting their agendas together, and I think there's sometimes, some neighborhood councils kind of skirt the edge of exhaustive efforts, and we just try to keep them going without officially putting them into it.
And my last question is, so are there any plans to currently deal with the removal of council members? Do we have anything in place, or are we waiting for this policy to be adopted to be able to then move forward with a removal process?
So once they're in exhaustive efforts, currently there's no way to remove if they're in exhaustive efforts unless their bylaws provide for it, and that usually is by board member vote or by stakeholder, like recall type of situation. But the department doesn't have anything in place to remove board members in exhaustive efforts.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then how do we implement this policy? If we approve it as giving you the ability, then what do we have to do? Is that a charter change, or is that an ordinance?
No, it's an ordinance.
Ordinance and plan change. So administrative code, yes.
That then gives them the authority to kind of overrule the bylaws.
Well, yes, because the administrative code and the plan, they supersede the bylaws.
My last question is that this report will be going to council. Do you just get your insight as far as the question Ms. Martinez asked earlier about the survey? Would that be of help as council members review this report to get insight as to what that survey and what the comments were?
Sure, we can supplement and add that information in.
Supplement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions?
That's it.
We'll approve item 1 as amended, asking for that additional information, and we'll get this to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2.
Item 2 is Department of Neighborhood Empowerment Report relative to amending Section 22.801 of the Los Angeles Administrative Code with regard to creating and maintaining an internal and external information and communication network for neighborhood council and public use.
Mr. Schaefer, you want to make your comment?
One last time, I'll be more brief. Leonard Schaefer, Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, speaking on behalf of the Commission. Yesterday at our meeting, we passed a request we're going to be sending to the City Council and the committee with regards to the community impact statement and having the council amend that community impact statement. The reason that I say that is because we all asked, okay, well, at least I did, where did the CIS come from? And fortunately, I know someone who is like myself. They're a pack rat with regard to their computer, and they have all kinds of things. And I found out that it came from Mayor Hahn's, it's either 7 or 8 point letter that he put out on neighborhood councils. And then Councilmember Janice Hahn, who was chair of this committee, they brought it up in front. They made a motion. It was adopted, and we got to do the CIS. So what does that have to do with here? The only way that I found out where these things came from and was able to tell the commission where they came from was contacting someone who's been involved with neighborhood councils for many, many years, a past general manager of the department. And he just happened to have that information sitting there, got me the CF numbers and everything else. What this would do is it would literally become a collection of information. And 5, 10, 12 years from now, when somebody wants to find out what happened back here at this meeting or someplace else, they'd be able to find it and wouldn't have to rely on somebody like me being a pack rat with their large hard drive. Thank you.
Gracie Liu, General Manager, Department of Neighbor Empowerment. As Commissioner Schaefer stated, and as the report states, over the past few years, because we've been updating the website and updating our policies and trying to make things clearer, the department has taken off some of the opinions that are no longer in effect because it has caused confusion. We won't, particularly with funding matters where folks will pull out an old funding memo and say, well, I'm following this, and it's been updated several times since then. So things have been dropped off, and this is the website. So this is an effort to create a database of basically the historical documents of the neighborhood council system, and we're in support of this, assuming that we have our budget approved for next year regarding some of our website outreach maintenance, because that's ultimately the hardest part of this is to upload, maintain, and find some of these documents.
So I understand it, is that what the complaint has been, what, the documents that are dated or outdated have been basically moved from immediate access, and that's what people are looking for, the historical, but we're still keeping
That's correct.
the updated material on the webpage.
There is updated material on the webpage. We are missing some of the legal opinions that we've basically incorporated into our manuals as procedure, but they ultimately maybe came from an original legal opinion many years ago. So some of that stuff has not made it onto our website. But this would collect all of that into one area.
Now, is that expected that your department is going to assume that responsibility? Is there
Well,
a funding issue that comes with that? Or?
There is a funding issue, and technically, even in the existing admin code, ITA is supposed to assist us with this. What we have found in terms of trying to move our website, which is an external WordPress website, into the city system, that it was very difficult and they were not able to do it at the time. So we can revisit with ITA to see if we can work this out and have them assist us with this.
You know, but the thing I'm always concerned about when we start something, will you be able to absorb the ongoing maintenance of this over a period of time? Because that's generally the weakness of, great idea when we get started and we find out
Right.
resources, the budget didn't work this year, all of a sudden all that good work kind of gets stagnant.
I think that the majority of this work is in the beginning in terms of identifying, because it is ultimately a library, a database library. So once we establish it, it takes very little to maintain. It's that initial locating of all the documents and categorizing them and then building the web pages to host them. That's the initial
So
work.
their access would be through your web page, and you'd have the library of charter changes, administrative code, policy statements.
That could be, we could be the ones to host it, but perhaps there's a different place on the lacity.org website to host it. That's just something that I would have to explore. There would be a portal on our website regardless of if it's hosted somewhere else, though.
The one thing I'd suggest on the proposal, that in addition to ITA, that you include the city clerk, because they're really the ones that host. ITA may create the mechanism, but when you go to council file and everything, it's really the city clerk that has that material with some CF numbers and all that. So we might add ask that we add to that comment that instead of, in addition to the ITA, that we add the city clerk in that discussion to create and maintain these files.
If I may add, just anecdotally and just an insight of what's going on in the department, sometimes it feels like we're running on fumes. And so sometimes we had an as-needed person come in who's very capable, but very quickly we needed to use him for rosters and for elections and for the helpline. And so we had that in mind, that we wanted him to start going through all our files and putting things in order, but you kind of put out the different fires. So we immediately took him to this something else. So as far as the resource piece that you say, council member, is very real for us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that
Yeah.
if I had a nickel for every file that got started and never completed, we don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
So you got to have something in that system that maintains it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So you basically have identified a sum of money to create this communication network. And are you asking for it in the fiscal 14-15?
We did request it in terms of database. I know right now, the budget's a big challenge for next fiscal year. As far as I know, that they will not be able to provide that funding. So we will try to be creative and see what else we can do.
There's bound to be some great philanthropist out there.
Let's hope so. At this point, I'm ready to. We have Nation Builder, as you know, working for us. So at this point, I'm ready to activate the donate now button for neighborhood councils, just to raise money.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move this item with that one minor addition of the assistance of the city clerk in addition to ITA to assist you in putting this together as it relates to these internal and external files.
Thank you, Councilmember.
We'll move that item with that amendment.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, so for item 2, you're requesting the city attorney to go ahead and draft the ordinance and just amend to add the city clerk.
Yeah, the city clerk should be part of that team that looks at this material of how it's going to be hosted and where people gain access. And particularly, I think when Gracie said it may not be the most appropriate on their website, well, ITA's website is not the place either. It's got to be the city clerk if we're going to have public access. So if we drive everybody to the council file, this would be a place for them to find the archives.
Okay, sir. And for item number 1, sir, so Mr. Chair, is also to request the city attorney to also draft an ordinance.
Yes, we're going to approve that report
Yeah.
with that addition of a supplemental report when it comes to council. Okay. Thank you very much. No other cards. We're adjourned.
Take care.
Take care.